Hello and welcome to this little tutorial about how to use Camunda in a sort of distributed architecture. The idea here is that Camunda will be a standalone engine, and then we'll also have some services that are distributed that are going to be doing work depending on how the state progresses within the process that we create in Camunda. So who am I? My name is Niall Deehan. I'm a developer advocate for Camunda, and my goal is just to make sure that if you're using Camunda that you're using it correctly and that you're not frustrated with doing stuff. And then these tutorials are a way to allow you to see firsthand how things work in a more hands-on way. I'm also joined as always by my faithful companion, whose name is Professor Giddy Reeves. So today what we're going to do is we're going to create a process. That process will have a bunch of tasks in it, and with those tasks we're going to assign topics to them. And once we assign topics to them, we're going to write two little external workers, one in Java, one in JavaScript, and these guys are going to subscribe to those topics and connect to Camunda and be able to do that work as it goes along. There are some prerequisites for this particular exercise. You're going to need the Camunda distro up and running, so you can go and download that, and this is just going to be the server where our process is going to be. So, and that's where the workers are going to subscribe to. You'll also need the Camunda modeler. This is for building our process and deploying it. Then because we're using Java and JavaScript for our workers, you'll need some kind of IDE for your Java project. I have a link there to Eclipse, but if you want to use any other type of IDE, it's fine. If you want to use IntelliJ or NetBeans or something, it doesn't really matter. But I'll be using Eclipse in this example. And then also we're going to be using a JavaScript worker as well, so I'm going to be using Node.js for that, so you can install Node.js. So once you have all of that running, I'll quickly explain what exactly we're going to build. We're essentially going to build an architecture that looks like this. So this is a remote standalone engine. You can see on the right there. So Camunda will be deployed to maybe something like Tomcat, and then we'll have all of our business logic, all of our services that we write that do all the real heavy lifting. They'll be subscribed to the engine via the REST API, and when the work arrives, when the process gets to the state where that work is needed, that will then be picked up by that service. It'll be done and then completed. The way we're going to do this is by utilizing the external task pattern. What this means is when we arrive at a given task, Camunda creates an internal queue. And this queue has a list of external tasks and topics. And what will happen is we arrive at a certain task, in this case validate address, and then the internal queue gets a new topic called validate address, and it just waits there until an external worker subscribes to that topic, then can lock the work, complete the work, and then finally the process continues. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to start right here in the Camunda modeler. This is an open source desktop application that's essentially built to help you create BPMN processes as well as make them executable so they can run in the engine. I'm going to click on this little button here, and we're going to start building our process. And we're going to start a process that is near and dear to my heart, which is the Roman Empire needs to expand. Okay, after we realize this, we need to decide where to go. Decide on direction of expansion. And once we decide on that, we can then have an XOR gateway that helps us decide which way to go. So if we want to expand, we of course have the first option here where we expand north, which will result in us invade Gaul. Okay, and if we go here, which is expand south, we are going to invade Persia. Okay, so let's turn these into service tasks. Great. So the nice thing is, of course, that after we have successfully invaded, the very important thing to do next is, and probably the most important thing about any Roman invasion, is we need to have a celebration. So we need to celebrate victory. Okay, and we'll make that a user task. Okay, so there's our process. It's pretty straightforward so far, and so far this has just created a simple little diagram, and the next part we want to do is add the semantics that are actually going to make this thing run. Now, adding the execution semantics are actually not very complicated. We just need to select the individual symbols or the canvas and be able to add some additional parameters to this properties panel on the right. I'll start with the global properties. If I select the canvas itself, you'll see the properties panel has asked me for an ID and a name. So this is going to be Rome invades and is the ID of our process, and the name, the human readable name, is going to be the same thing with a space. We also have this little box ticked. Okay, so that will be the name of our process. Next, we need to go down here to our first task, decide on direction of expansion. If I select this, the properties panel will change again. This time we'll be asked for an implementation dropdown. Now, there's a few different options here you want to do. If you had a more coupled system, you might want to choose a Java class, but we're fully decentralized, so we're going to use an external task, and we're going to be decide on expansion. Okay, so once the process gets here, it'll commit to the external tasks list a new topic called decide on expansion. We will then wait for an external system to get that topic, do the work, and then complete it. When it does complete it, it's going to require a variable because we need to know whether to go north or south. So in that case, we're going to actually select this guy here. This is the sequence flow leaving the XOR gateway and going to Gaul. So this is trying to decide under what circumstances we do that. In this case, we're going to use an expression. That expression is going to be hash, open curly bracket, and the word north, and then close curly bracket. What that means would be that if we get a variable called north, and it is a boolean and it's true, we will go here. And if I go down to the south branch, I can then say expression hash, open curly bracket, not north, close curly bracket. This means that if that same variable and north is false, then we'll go and invade Persia. Okay, so then we actually need to give the execution semantics to these two systems as well. Now these will also be external tasks, and they'll just be slightly different. They will have a different topic called invade Gaul. This one here will be an external task in which we invade Persia. Okay, so at the end of that, of course, they will then celebrate victory, which is the important thing to do. So we'll leave that as it is. And right now I'm actually using the running the engine right now. You'll see that if I open up my web browser on localhost 8080/Camunda app and cockpit, this is what you would see. So this is the default distro that I downloaded. We'll also be able to see here, if I click on processes, that I have a single process called invoice receipt. This is the example process that comes along with the distro. So we want to get our process in here, of course. So I'm going to go back to my model, and I'm going to just save it somewhere. And then I'm going to use this button here, deploy current diagram. If I click on that, I have this little guy here, which helps me deploy it. The first thing you'll notice is that we have a REST endpoint here, which is the endpoint of the engine I'm currently running. So the reason this will work is because I have it running in the background, and we're using this call, which is deployment create. So I'm going to call this Rome. I'm going to click deploy. Okay, then we get this lovely message. You've successfully deployed the diagram. And if I then open up my cockpit and refresh, I should then be able to see, oh, there I am, my process has started, and my process has been deployed, and now I have the ability to start it. Right now there's nothing happening in it, it's just this image. If I want to start it, and in this case I'll do it through the user interface, I'm then going to go up to the little house up here and select task list. This is another front-end application to allow us to start processes via a more end user friendly front end. So while we're here, if I click on start process up here, I'll have my two processes, invoice receipt and Rome invades. If I select Rome invades and then click start, it begins. And going back to cockpit, then we can see, if I refresh this, that there is a token waiting here, which indicates that right now we have a process that's waiting for this to be done. More specifically, if I click into the instance and select the external tasks tab, you'll see that it's specifically waiting for somebody to subscribe and complete this topic. So the next step would be we would need to build a worker to actually do this work. Okay, so let's get started. And what a better place to start than with an empty folder. And in that empty folder, I'm going to need to create my worker. So I'm going to write the first worker is going to be in JavaScript. So it's going to be decide on expansion worker.js. Okay, so right now this is an empty folder, so I'm just going to use, empty file, sorry, so I'm going to use Sublime to just edit this. Great stuff. And rather than write any code myself, because that is a lot of work, I'm instead going to use a pre-written and supported worker in JavaScript or a implementation that you can find online. It is this guy right here. So this is on GitHub, and this is essentially a worker that makes the REST calls that are required. It's a wrapper for the REST calls that are needed to make subscribe to work, to do the work and complete the work. So the first thing you need to do is do a bunch of copying and pasting. Right down here, this is some good stuff. So I'll just take that, and I will go to my worker and just pop that there. So what this is, it shows that it's taking this external task client JS. It's going to point at the REST endpoint, which in our case is localhost 8080 engine REST, and then it needs to do this thing here where it's actually going to register for a specific topic. So you can see here the client is created. It's then subscribing to this topic. So we of course need to make sure that we subscribe to the correct topic. So if I go back here into Cockpit, you'll see that this is the topic name that we need to subscribe to. So let's put that there. And we also need to do some kind of business logic. In our case, it's not going to be too complicated. So we're actually just going to paste this lovely thing here. That is very straightforward. The business logic is not complicated. It's going to create a random Boolean value called north. Now that we have our business logic, we need to put that into a variable that then we can send back into the task. The reason is because, as you can see from our process, we need to complete this task and decide where to go next, either north or south. So that means that our worker is going to need to send that variable back. And luckily, of course, again, I don't need to worry too much about writing anything. If I scroll down, you'll find here how to handle variables. The first thing I'll add is this guy here. Okay, I'll add that to the top here. And then I need, at this point here, to create the variable, to create the holder for the variable and then send it into the complete task. Again, it's not too complicated. We can go back here and we see here set variable. That sounds like the kind of thing I want to do. So let's copy that. And then I'm going to head back here and put it in there. So the variable we're going to want to create is called north. And its value is going to be the value north. And then going to complete the task with those process variables. Okay, so this is our worker. It is alive and well. So the next thing I need to do is to simply install the packages I need and then start the worker up. So let's do that next. Installing the packages is really easy, again, mostly because as with everything in life, you can copy and paste it. So I'm going to scroll up here a bit and you'll see that at the very, very top, it basically tells you here's what we need to do. So I'm going to copy that and then go to our folder here. And in here, I'm just going to open up a command window. So I'm going to open up PowerShell. I'm just going to say, okay, npm install this lovely client library. Then it's going to download all the stuff we need and put it into a folder as a dependency. Great, and now we can actually start it up. So at the moment, if we look at our cockpit, we are at this point right here, which means that if we start our process, we should end up here or here in a second, or sorry, start our worker. So let's start this off by typing in node and then decide on expansion worker.js. Hooray, look at that. It completed it already. So it completed the task, which means that our process has gone ahead this way. We can see, of course, the variable north was sent in, and it is true, which is why we decided to invade Gaul in this particular case. Let's find out if that's a useful decision. So now that we've actually done that, we have a new external task. And there it is, invade Gaul, and we're going to actually build that in Java instead of JavaScript. So let's give that a shot next. Similarly to the JavaScript worker, we are going to do a lot of copying and pasting, so that's good news for everybody. And we're going to start inside Eclipse. As I said, I'll be using Eclipse, but you can use any IDE you like. And I'm going to use a new Maven project. The reason I'm using Maven is because I want to be able to update the pump file quite easily with the dependencies. You can also use Gradle if you like. It follows the same basic principles. So I'm not going to use an archetype. I'm just going to create a basic project. And I'm going to call this com.camunda.invade and invade worker. Okay. So what that'll do is it'll create a very basic Java project in which we're going to add some bits and pieces to make things work. While that builds, what I'm going to be actually using is essentially here, which is very similar to the JavaScript worker. This is an external task client for the Java worker. Again, same as before, this guy here essentially just implements the REST calls that are used for the completing locking tasks and also other bits and pieces more advanced that I might get into another video. And we can follow along quite easily here and with the Maven dependencies and everything else, including actually the very nice quick start here, where if you follow you'll end up with this step-by-step instructions. You can see here that I've already created my Maven project, and now I actually just need to add some dependencies to my worker. So you see here we need these, so let's just copy that and let's go back to my Eclipse project. So at this point this thing is built. The POM file is the list of dependencies that we need. I'm going to open that up and I'm just going to put in here the dependencies, and I'm going to use a different version. I'm going to change the version to 2 alpha. Okay. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a property here to make sure that Maven uses Java 8 so when it compiles. Okay, so that's our worker. Good stuff. And this is the dependencies the worker will need to actually write our worker. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new Java class. And it's going to be in the package com.camunda.tutorial, and this is going to be invade worker. Okay, that's it. And there it is in all its glory. So it doesn't actually do anything just yet. And to make it do some stuff, you're never going to guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy and paste some stuff. So if I go down here on that same link on the Get Started guide, you see they have very, very kindly given me an entire class to work with. I'm first going to copy the imports. Okay, so let's put those guys there. Now, because we already have the dependencies added, those imports should be fine. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all this stuff here. All looks very nice. And I'm going to pop it in here. Okay. Now, as it happens, my project is got a problem, which you might also find, which is that it's complaining that I'm not using Java 8. So if you're not, and this is a problem I've seen quite a lot, you just need to go in here, find the compiler settings, untick this, and then just select the Java 8. And once you do that, it should be a lot easier to use some stuff. Okay. The next thing I need to do is I need to just change this. This class is not our worker, we're the invade worker. You can see here that's very similar to the JavaScript worker. We see here that we have an engine REST endpoint here. We also have our subscribe, and again we need to change this to the topic we want. And we also have the handler here that does a whole bunch of stuff. In this case, it sets some variables and things. I'm going to get rid of that and just change to the logger, something like invade. Okay. And of course, we also need to make sure that this has the correct topic it's subscribing to. Again, we can make sure of that by going to Cockpit and seeing, okay, this is invade Gaul, so let's copy that and let's add that to our subscribe. There we go. Okay, that looks about right. At the end here, we're completing the task, so that's pretty good. So now I should be able to run this worker. I'm going to right click, run as. I'm just going to do a Maven install to make sure everything's okay. Build success, great. And now I'm just going to run this worker. Now if I do, it should pick up invade Gaul. And what we should see is that the process has moved to celebrate. So let's do this, run as Java application. Okay, looking good. We have an invade was printed. That's what we want. So let's see how that looks in here. So if I refresh this, I should see a token that's there. Hooray, the token is indeed there. And yeah, so now we've actually managed to do that. So let's actually start the process again. This time I'm going to start back up my JavaScript worker. Great stuff. So that's working away. The Java one is also subscribed and working away. So now if I go back to task list and start this, okay, we have a second celebrate victory because again we have passed all the way through. Now there's one interesting thing is if I start this guy here, let's see if we decide to invade Persia for a change. Ah, we did. What a coincidence. So we decided to invade Persia and now we're doing nothing. Now the thing is, it's very possible that these two are quite similar. So what I want to do is I want to show that a single worker doesn't necessarily need to subscribe to a single topic. Instead, what we can do is we can kill this for now. What we can do is we can add a second subscription. So to this worker, I'm just going to say, okay, this guy can do two things. I'm going to copy this. It can subscribe to invade Gaul and also subscribe to invade Persia. Okay, which means slightly different. Okay, so this is really nice. It means that if we had a microservice or a service that could do lots of different types of work, we could subscribe to all the types of work that we can do. So let's run this and see what happens. So let's head back here. Okay, so right now we have our victory. We can also see the history of what's happened so far, and if we see that, we can see that Persia has been completed and our worker has invaded Persia quite well. Okay, so now we have a Java worker that is subscribed to do work that involves invading places, and we also have a JavaScript worker that is running here that is actually deciding on the expansion, and both being independent, they are both essentially subscribed to the engine and just waiting there until their work becomes available. So now if I were to start this in task list, we have 3 victories here. If I start a new process, Rome invade and start, we should then see that we have a 4th, because it completely ran through the whole process again, and this guy would have completed something, and so did the JavaScript, the Java worker as well. Okay. So that just leaves me to say that if you are interested in more information, or you want some help with whatever you're doing, feel free to go to the Camunda forum. They're on the right there, forum.camunda.org. If you're interested in what the team is doing and the different patterns that we would create, you can go to the developer blog on blog.camunda.org. And we also have a bunch of events that happen around the place. So we often go to different countries and do little workshops to help you get started, or at least more advanced workshops in some cases, or advanced meetups in case you want to do something a little more drastic. We also have a Twitter thingy if you want to follow that. And hopefully that's enough to get you guys started and to help you guys enjoy using Camunda. Thanks again, and yeah, good luck invading Rome.